All right, guys, welcome into the Auburn Postgame Show brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. I'm Simone alongside Wes Sinor. This one just went final on the Plains. And boy, do we have a lot to discuss here on the Auburn Postgame Show. The Tigers get the win over the Missouri Tigers, 17-14 the final. But what a complete whirlwind of a finish there, Wes. I don't even know where to begin. We're just talking about this. Let's just begin with the end. That the fumble into the end zone in overtime, a touchback for the Tigers, and Auburn wins. I mean, what just happened?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a very Auburn game, I would say.
Auburn finish, that's for sure.
Yes, exactly. Like just coming down to the wire. Really, some unexpected things happening. I mean, we just even before overtime, it looked like the game was in hand. Missouri had it lined up right down the middle. 20-something yard field goal goes wide. I think saves Brian Harson's job, with that miss. I think if Auburn had lost today, I don't know how Harson would make it to next week, honestly. But, that kick goes wide. And then, Auburn really kind of struggling in the kicking game today with Anders Carlson missing a couple. And then he got a second chance at it again and nailed it this time. And then, that last play by Missouri, what a heartbreaker for the visiting Tigers today.
No question, yes.
Really, I mean, had it in hand. I mean, had the ball just another inch there, probably would have gotten them in the end zone, but dropped it. So
absolutely. I saw a comment a moment ago that was, where did that say? The Keep Your Job Bowl, and that's kind of the truth. Obviously, Eli Drinkwitz over there for Missouri, Brian Harsin for Auburn. Harsin comes out the winner in this one, but boy, what a finish. Let's back it up a little bit.
So there's a lot to unpack.
Let's back up a little bit to that 4th and short. Where Auburn had the opportunity to kick a go-ahead field goal and didn't. Now, I understand that Anders Carlson had missed a field goal earlier in the game. In my opinion, in that moment, I feel like you have to kick that field goal. So to go for it when you're not getting anything and no push in the offensive line, to give the ball to Tank, he can't get anything going, and then to gamble with potentially losing, should have lost there, really. It's just crazy how that all ended up. Wes, I know it's easy to be us on this side of it and to make that call, but I was surprised to see that they did not kick that field goal.
I agree too. I mean, Auburn historically has been known as pretty reliable, having pretty reliable kickers. Obviously, Anders is coming off that ACL tear, and he's still trying to work back to get 100%. But you notice early in the game, I mean, Auburn went for 4th and short, or I think twice on the first drive.
Yeah.
And so that early on to me showed that like they're really trying to, establish something today and really trying to get those early points. But in that situation, late in the game, I disagreed with that call. I think you got to kick that football, especially the way that Missouri's defense was kind of bottling up Tank in the second half. I know he had a lot of success in the first quarter early on, but that Auburn offensive line, there really just wasn't a lot of push there and not really enough room for Tank to get much yards in the second half. So I was really surprised that Auburn opted to go for it there in that situation. But
Likewise. I felt like, yes, early on in the game, I mean, it's quick, a lot of quick hits, a lot of runs with Ashford early on to go for it on 4th and short 3 times there in the first drive was a little bit different than late in the game when they had not scored. I mean, they scored in the first 2 drives, had a great defensive takeaway. So things were really rolling early on. And I'm kind of thinking, okay, we're getting some answers here early. And then what a just boring 2.5 quarters. The second, the third, and most of the fourth. I mean, it was just absolutely rough. And here's that a play early on here, the tip by Nehemiah Pritchett, and then picked off, and just a great play by the Auburn defense, their first takeaway of the season. But that kind of set the tone early on, Wes, I thought, only for the game to really, really get dry later on.
Yeah, I mean, the offense really kind of stalled out there in the second half. You could tell like early on that they were committed to the run, obviously, with Ashford being the quarterback in this game, his first start. I believe Auburn rushed the ball 15 times to start the game and didn't even put the ball in the air until the 16th play. So it was clear that they were trying to establish the run. But like I said, that second half, they weren't really able to move the ball very well at all. Actually, if you look at the total yards, I mean, 1.8 yards per carry today on the ground for Auburn. And So it's concerning for sure. Just especially looking at the rest of Auburn's schedule and these teams that are coming up. I mean, this is not going to cut it for the rest of the year. But the defense, I would say, kept Auburn in the game today, especially in that second half. I knew Iko Leota had a big sack in the second half. I think Jalen Simpson had a big pass breakup on third down. So really, I think credit goes to the defense for this game today and kind of keeping.
I think credit goes to just how bad both teams are, honestly. Credit goes to the fact that Missouri is not good, because any team that's getting coached worth a dang and any team that has any sort of talent wins that game. I mean, any sort of team that has a kicker that does maybe one warm-up kick wins that game. Missouri's win probability with 3 seconds to go in regulation was 95%. I mean, it's a chip shot. I'm not saying I could do it, but I also, I'm not on scholarship to do it. I mean, that should have been a walk-away win for Missouri right then. And you also wonder what Eli...
Could you make that kick, Simone, you think?
I probably could have, to be honest. I probably could have made that kick. You have to wonder what Eli is thinking a little bit too. And I get that you're trying to play it safe. But when you have a first and goal from the 3, and I'm not trying to advocate for Missouri to win, but they're playing scared football in that moment. For them to have it first and goal from the 3, and to do this just, let's just set up the field goal instead of attempt to punch it in my opinion, is playing scared football. And he'll be lucky if it doesn't cost him his job on that side of it, honestly.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's just some weird play calls today. Weird game. I mean, a typical Auburn game, I think. But they should count themselves very lucky to come out of this game with a win, because like I said earlier, I don't think Harsin makes it to Monday if they had dropped this game.
No, I mean, I think Harsin would have gotten Herm Edwards, treatment had he lost this game, to be honest with you. And the look on his face, I don't know. I don't know what to think about his reaction, honestly, when that field goal was missed. I don't know if he wanted to puke in that moment or if he wanted to celebrate. I'm not really sure he knew how to feel in that moment when that field goal was missed and they had the opportunity. And then, how many lives does Auburn have to have in this game? Because the near interception there of Robbie Ashford in the overtime period when Auburn was on offense, I mean, that potentially could have ended it, because at that point, all Missouri has to do is kick a field goal to win. Yep.
Yeah. It seemed like Auburn should have lost this game multiple times as you're watching it, right?
Yes.
And that's, just really unpredictable finish here today. It looked like they were going to lose in regulation. It looked like they were going to lose in overtime. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't really know what to think. I'm still kind of processing everything from today.
No doubt. Well, let's talk about the quarterback situation, Wes, because I think that we still have some questions, some concerns, if you will, about what things are going to like moving forward. At the end of the day, a win is a win is a win. You start SEC play with a win, and you need this one, because what's ahead for Auburn is not easy. With road games now with LSU and then at Georgia, at Arkansas, I mean, it's not going to get any easier for Auburn for sure. But Wes, when you look at the quarterback situation, if Finley continues to be out, Ashford's going to be your starter. Holden Garner looks like a freshman out there. I'm not saying the guy isn't talented. He looks like a freshman, which is how he's supposed to look. But I think that we got our answer pretty quickly as to why Harsin hasn't rolled with this guy already, because he's still trying to learn the speed of this game probably. And I'm sure trying to figure out the scheme, the offense, etc.
Yeah, I'm sure when they brought in Ashford and Calzada, in the offseason with Finley already kind of returning, I don't think Garner was even in the game plan for this entire year. I'm sure that he was just fourth string, red shirt, whatever. But now that they're down to 2 scholarship quarterbacks, you're kind of in this position where you're going to have to play Garner a little bit.
Yeah.
And he had to come in today when Robbie got hurt. I mean, one thing that I was a little surprised to see is I know Robbie's fast and he likes to get down the field and he likes to be involved. He's throwing his body all over the place, but man, you're one of 2 active scholarship quarterbacks on this team, and he got hurt today throwing a block.
Yeah.
You should probably be a little more careful with what you're doing with your body when you've got 2 other quarterbacks out and a true freshman is the only other option.
No, and I agree with that from the common sense standpoint, but you also have to think about the adrenaline in that moment. I mean, at that point, I think it was the third quarter. I think it was. They're trying to get something going offensively after a very slumped second quarter. And so, I mean, am I blaming the guy? You got to be smarter than that, of course. But Robbie Ashford, I covered him in high school, Hoover High School, and he's just a baller type mentality. He's going to put his body on the line and do whatever he needs to do. But Harsin's probably looking at him like, hey, dude, you're one of 2 people that are on scholarship. The other guy literally has never played a college down in his life. Like, we probably need you to stay healthy if we can. When you look at the stats, it's concerning because here's the thing. Missouri isn't good. Okay, Missouri isn't good, and Auburn's going to play a lot more difficult teams moving forward. Passing yard, I mean, we're talking 125 yards in the air, 82 yards on the ground. Not ideal. I mean, that's not the net. If you look at the action, that is the net. But if that's also with a 17-yard loss, Holden Garner getting sacked and things. But 82 yards on the ground is not going to get it done in the SEC. Needless to say, Wes.
No, absolutely not. And I think it just goes back to the line. I just think the offensive line's struggling. And it's clear that, like, after the Penn State game, that, you know, with Tank only getting the ball 9 times, it was like, that has to change. You know, he has to be carrying the ball probably 20, 25 times a game from here on out. Even if the defense knows that he's obviously the best player on the team, you still have to make him the focal point of the offense, because the quarterbacks, the healthy quarterbacks right now, I don't think you can rely on them to just take over a game, you know, especially through the air. I think it was promising to see Coy Moore today, the receiver, kind of step up. He seems to be developing some good, a rhythm with Robbie Ashford. I think he was the top receiver today with 4 catches for 74 yards. So, you know, this receiver core is still kind of like just kind of at an average level, I think. But it's good for Coy Moore to kind of stand out today. And, I think that's promising for the games that are coming up. But I don't know. I just don't know what to expect out of Auburn anymore.
Well, and honestly, we can pick apart, every single position group. But if we're going to talk about somebody, we need to talk about that offensive line. Because at the end of the day, the offensive success runs through the guys up front. If Robbie Ashford isn't getting protection, if they're not getting any sort of push, the offense can't go. And I think this is why, and then we see the comment here from Ernie Messer, appreciate it, Travis as well. I mean, we don't have to be, some offensive coordinator, guru, Nick Saban, name it, to know that this offensive line just straight up isn't getting it done. And when you're facing some of these defensive lines in the SEC, like, it's going to be a difficult day, Wes. They have to step up. They have to get something worked out. I think Brian Harsin said last week that this position group has shown improvement. And they have. I mean, last year, if you think about it, he was so critical of this position group. After week 2 of this season, he felt like it was working, like it was meshing, and these guys had another year under their belt. But something has got to give when it comes to this O-line.
Yeah, definitely. It just seemed like Missouri was kind of controlling the line today. The defense, I mentioned it earlier, but I don't think Tank really, especially in the second half, had much to run through. He was definitely finding more success early on in the game, but as the game wore on, it just seemed like Auburn's offensive line just was like, they just didn't have it. It seemed like they were getting a little gassed out there, and it's tough when you've got, Ashford, who's back there starting his first game. This is really a must-win game for Auburn. And when your offensive line, I mean, that's kind of like the focal point of the whole offense. Like, if your offensive line isn't doing well, then you're not going to be able to pass the way you want to. You're not going to be able to run the way you want to. So that's definitely an area of concern moving forward. Probably the biggest area of concern, I would think so.
Yeah, and
even down 2 quarterbacks, I still think the offensive line is the biggest issue.
I totally agree. And moving forward, I mean, let's look at the schedule. We just talked about it a minute ago, but Auburn's going to be back at home for their 5th straight home game to open the season before they hit the road. But it's LSU, rivalry game at Jordan-Hare, a night game, ESPN at 6:00. Then Auburn's going to go on the road to number 1 Georgia. Then they're going to play Ole Miss. Then it's and then the bye week, and then Arkansas. The road is certainly not any easier, Wes, and it's not going to be for guys like Robbie Ashford and company needing to get things done.
No, and I mean, at this point, I've just been talking to some of my coworkers, like, trying to figure out, like, what the future holds for this team. And, like, is this a bowl game team? I mean, do you see 3 more wins on the schedule at this point in the season? I mean, you got Western Kentucky, before
Western
Alabama.
Kentucky ain't that bad, to be honest.
I know.
They're not. I'm just
Western
saying.
Kentucky. I think most people assume Auburn will be a win for Auburn. But then you got to get to 2 more wins, and, like, I don't know. I mean, I don't see them beating Georgia or Alabama or Arkansas or Texas A&M. I'm not trying to be like Debbie Downer here or anything, but, like, just this should not have gone to overtime today. This should have, even down Finley, like, Auburn should have handled this game. This should have basically been in hand in the second half, I think.
Yeah.
But the longer Missouri hung around, they came back. Auburn went out to that 14-0 lead, and Missouri came back and tied the game. And then it was just like you said, just kind of a boring second half. It was just neither offense could really do much. Neither one was kind of taking control and trying to take command of the game. So yeah, it's the outlook still for Auburn. I think this season is not that great. And yes, they won today, and they're 3-1, but this this might be one of the worst 3-1 teams I've seen in recent memory from Auburn.
There's no question. So my question now is this: does Brian Harsin make it to Halloween if he does not win one of the next 3? So they have the bye week. They have LSU, Georgia, Ole Miss bye week. Then it's Halloween. Does he make it to Halloween if they don't beat LSU, Georgia, or Ole Miss?
They're not beating Georgia, especially at Georgia. This is not going to happen. But I think if they pull off one of those other games, if they win one of those, either LSU or Ole Miss, then I think he could probably stay on.
But if
if they lose all 3 of those,
does he get fired in the bye week?
Yes, I would say so. Even without, and I thought basically right now, what I thought was buying Harsin some time was the fact that they don't have an AD in place, right? They get rid of Allen Green in August. If Allen Green was still here and say he ends up losing some of those games at the bye week, I think he's gone. But I thought when Allen Green left and now they just have an interim AD, I was like, well, maybe this will buy Harsin some time through the season, because it would be hard to fire a coach and look for a replacement with just an interim AD. But I don't think that really matters anymore. No, I think if they lose these next 3 games, I think he would be gone for sure.
No, the big wigs, the money guys, they make the calls. I mean, this is no secret. At least they have a large hand in it, regardless of who the interim AD is, real AD, whatever it looks like. In my opinion, if they want him gone come the bye week, that will be the case. So we will see. 3 games that will be very telling for Auburn. But at the end of the day, like Margie says right here, coach saves. Potentially, he's not going to get fired after this win. I'll tell you that. He's going to be the coach on Monday. He's going to have his press conference. They're going to have another week of practice. They're going to go prepare for LSU at home next week. So Harsin's going to have a job this week. Did the missed field goal, save his job? In my opinion, very likely. So. There's a very, very high potential. Jimmy, I have to disagree with you. I don't think he's gone today. I think that he's very much in today. Very rarely is a coach going to get fired after a win. Just my opinion. We're covering college football for a second. I don't think I've ever seen it.
I haven't either. No, I don't think so.
Yeah. We will see, guys. We will see. Wes, any final thoughts before we let this one out?
No, I mean, just a wild game. I didn't really know what to expect coming into this game, but I definitely did not expect it to go to overtime. I didn't expect Missouri to miss that really easy 20-something. I mean, they had 2 chances or maybe 3 chances where it felt like this game was over for Auburn, and just really wild finish here. So looking forward to seeing how this LSU game goes next week. Who knows what's going to happen? But I'll be interested to see if how much longer TJ Finley is going to be out and how that kind of affects the offense, going forward. So
will TJ Finley play next week against his former team? Looking around the SEC right now, Florida, Tennessee just kicked off, no score in the first. Georgia beats Kent State. That was bizarre for a second. The game seemed closer than what people thought.
I threw that on. It got interesting for a little bit. I threw it on, and then Georgia scored. I was like, okay.
Yeah, 39-22 the final there. Mississippi State beats Bowling Green. Elsewhere in the SEC, Arkansas, Texas A&M tonight, Vandy at Alabama. Other than that, those are the only in-conference games that we have for the rest of the evening. But, guys, at the end of the day, a win is a win, and that's all that matters for now. Auburn, they advanced to 3-1 on the season. Next week, it's LSU. Then it's at Georgia and at Ole Miss. The road does not get any easier for Brian Harsin and company. We will have all your coverage. Continue here on AL.com. Guys, thanks for tuning in to the Auburn Postgame Show brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. For Wes Sinor, I'm Simone Eli. We will see y'all later this week.
Medical Properties Trust, at the very heart of healthcare.